Well, welcome back to the program. Let me just sort of reset here. You're the PPC candidate hoping to represent Notre Dame de Grace, Westmount, Quebec. If memory serves, you're up against Marc Garneau, are you not?
That is right. Minister of what was it now? Foreign Affairs, I believe.
Okay. So let me go back to this idea that I saw on your Twitter feed, which I thought is brilliant. So you want to replace the carbon tax with a carbon tariff. Explain.
So, I mean, I don't know where the idea came from. I can't take full credit for it, but I was having a discussion with someone. I said, what we're doing effectively with the Paris Agreement, carbon taxes, it's great. We reduce our emissions. And as the falsified argument goes now, per capita, we're not far off from China. But that argument falsifies the entire discussion because you then take the greatest polluter on Earth. They get to amortize down their pollution because they also happen to be the most populous nation on Earth. So they get to average down their pollution because of overpopulation. I said, we're basically crippling our economy, outsourcing all the pollution to the manufacture of these products overseas, China, India, elsewhere, where they don't have any form of the same environmental regulations that we have. And so you're not only crippling the Canadian economy, you're just exacerbating global emissions. So instead of taxing a carbon tax here, impose a carbon tariff on goods, these toys, whatever that are coming in from countries that are the greatest polluters, and you'll have a net positive. I mean, you'll increase manufacturing in Canada. You will effectively penalize the greatest polluters on Earth objectively. I don't care if it rounds down for per capita, and it's a win-win for everyone, the environment and the Canadian economy.
I think it's a brilliant idea. Now, I'm on record, over the last 20 years on the airwaves here in Toronto. I don't believe in anthropogenic global warming. However, that doesn't mean that we should do something about, pollution. And if we're going to play this game of, carbon taxes, then let's turn it around, as you say, and turn it into a carbon tariff. So have you talked about this with your intrepid leader, Max Burnley?
I did actually. I messaged them. I'm new to this political process, so we'll see how ideas get floated around before they become formal party policy. But I mean, just to have the discussion when you have new members of an emerging political group, you're going to have a bunch of new ideas, and this is part of the beauty of a new political group is that you're not coming in with the curse of the knowledge or the same old solutions that you've been proposing for years that actually haven't been working. Government, I've noticed, is good at doubling down on its mistakes and doubling down when things aren't working. If the law is not yielding the right results, more laws. But this is a great idea. I have my sneaking suspicions why it would be politically unpopular for the current Liberal Party or the current government, in that it might be making enemies with a community that they want to be making friends with. But at the end of the day, some people were suggesting maybe there's rules in the World Trade Organization that would prohibit this. But, whether or not we agree that carbon emissions are the be all and end all of global pollution, to the extent you've identified those as being the problem and declared that we're in a climate crisis, if you're not going to look for the actual practical solutions, even if they might be politically unpopular, well, then I would say it's more political virtue signaling from the current administration.
David, hold on. We'll take a quick timeout, come back and discuss further. David Fryheit is the PPC candidate hoping to represent the riding of Notre Dame de Grace, Westmount in Quebec, and back with more in about 3 minutes. Don't go away. David Fryheit, creator of the popular YouTube Viva Fry, is with us, the PPC candidate for Notre Dame de Grace, Westmount. And how do you like that pronunciation? Pretty horrible. Sorry.
Well, we go with Notre Dame de Grace, but people say NDG Westmount. It's the easier abridged version.
I'll remember that for next time. We were talking about this proposal to replace the carbon tax with a carbon tariff. I was speaking with the president of, or I guess he's marketing director of a U.S. firm that is involved in the shale oil industry. And he was talking about how we were talking about supply chains. And here's an idea I think, maybe you and Max might be interested in. Roughly 9 out of 10 things that we buy off the shelves at Walmart or wherever comes from overseas. It's shipped over here in these giant tankers. These things are 6 football fields long, 600 feet long. And just one of these container ships produces enough or as much CO2 as 15 million cars in a year. If you replaced 15 of these container ships, that's equal to all of the CO2 produced by all of the vehicles on the planet. So the best thing that we can do in terms of global warming and reducing CO2 and getting to, I mean, this is the low-hanging fruit. You bring all the manufacturing back, factories here on our own soil. That's good for the environment.
People don't fully appreciate that. And when I first heard that statistic as well, like, they talk about cars being pollutants. And in Montreal, they outlawed bagel shops from cooking with fire stoves because of environmental concerns. When you look at the small solutions they go for versus what the actual problems are, you realize that it's an easy solution because it's right there, but it does nothing. It's sort of like Parkinson's law of politics again. Easy solution doesn't actually accomplish anything. But you bring back manufacturing in places where you have meaningful environmental regulations. You also cease being dependent on foreign countries for important goods. Like this is when my eyes opened, was in the beginning of the pandemic, where I'm like, how do we have a shortage of PPE? How are we worried about having certain drugs, medications? Because they're all manufactured overseas. We're reliant on India for medicines. And that's going to be what is going to cause us to be locked down in our homes, is that we're not nationally dependent on essential products. And so it's not even the toys and the garbage that we buy or the cars that you have shipped over in containers. It's meaningful, essential supplies that we are utterly reliant for on other countries. So you bring back manufacturing, you bring back jobs, you become nationally independent on meaningful things, and you get people to buy responsibly. So instead of being coerced sort of economically to go buy from Walmart because it's so cheap, if you had a tariff there, it would incentivize local manufacturing. It would incentivize people to buy local. But these freight ships, people don't understand the degree to which they are responsible. In as much as that's what we want to blame pollution on, they are the greatest emitters out there.
How goes the campaign in your riding?
I'm getting good vibes off the street. I don't want to jinx anything. My posters are still up. I've had one that was defaced. I have not been heckled. I have not been abused. That's my dog upstairs barking. But I have not had any bad experiences. I had one, let's call it irritating discussion, because people accuse me of being a flat earther because they see me running with the PPC. But other than that, there is a radical shift in the Canadian political landscape. Liberals who tell me that they've been liberals their entire lives are not voting for Trudeau. And the discussion we literally have on the street, do they vote NDP or do they vote PPC? I happen to think NDP is no better. I don't think Jagmeet Singh is any better of a leader than Trudeau. I just think he hasn't had the opportunity to be quite as corrupt as Trudeau. But I say you can vote NDP out of protest, but you should be voting PPC out of protest and principle.
Are you being excluded from all candidates' debates in your riding?
I'm pushing hard. I'm getting into one tomorrow at the Westmount Municipal Association. They didn't try to exclude me. They invited me as the recognized Elections Canada candidate. Other candidates have been systematically excluded at the local levels for any number of reasons. Some of them for the vaccination reason. They say if you're not vaccinated, you can't go. Others are applying the federal standards to their local debates for whatever the reason. And then other ones are not even applying the federal standard, because right now PPC is polling well over 4%. So they just apply a standard. Well, if you don't have a seat in-house currently, we're not inviting you. All of these rules are very convenient to exclude the PPC, which is seeing a surge in the polls like no party has ever seen, and has 312 candidates of the 338 ridings.
So how goes the purple surge? Because I know I've been watching ECOS tracking their polls, and I know the only poll that matters is on election day. But let's face it, we all watch. And at one point, the PPC, according to ECOS, was up around 12%.
Yep.
Today, they're down below, maybe just an eyelash below 8%. What are your thoughts? What is your sense in terms of, can the PPC win any seats?
My prediction is that they are going to win. I would say a half dozen seats across the country, and I'm just trying to be not get too encouraged or overzealous. But I'm telling you, the word on the street, and I'm getting emails from people who have never voted PPC before. Obviously, it's a new party. Have been liberals. They're telling me they're voting for me. They're telling me that they've had enough, and that they just cannot stand anything but Trudeau. And I'm in Westmount. and people on the street are saying anybody but Trudeau. Some people are not any more encouraged with O'Toole or Jagmeet, and nor should they be. I mean, these are all, when all the parties come out and say we're all in this together in unison, it gives you a pretty clear indication that politically speaking, these parties are differing only on degree and not in essence. And so people are realizing if they don't want to get locked, if they don't think that lockdowns are a legitimate tool of governance, there's only one party to vote for. If they are double vaccinated, but don't necessarily want their vaccine passport to be predicated on 6-month boosters, they know who to vote for. If they do not believe that we should cripple the Canadian economy for virtue signaling brownie points on the global scale, there's only one party to vote for. And people are realizing it now.
David, always appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Talk again.
Thank you very much for having me.